Today I've got an information-packed broadcast. I'm going to be interviewing Shahin Gobadi, the spokesperson for the National Council of the Resistance of Iran, and he's going to talk about a pivotal event that is taking place in Washington, D.C., and also give you a status of this coming revolution in Iran, the status to achieving it, to overthrowing the mullahs, which is going to cause a geopolitical seismic shift. Shahin, welcome back to the broadcast. This is an exciting show today because your group is about to have a huge event in Washington, D.C. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually the U.S. Representative Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran will host a major convention, the first of its kind, in Washington, D.C. on November the 15th. Actually, Iranians from all over the United States will come to DC, more than 1,000, I would say. Academicians, experts, activists from 3 generations will come to Washington to discuss a very important issue, and that is the roadmap to overthrow the regime and also the transition to a democratic republic. And it's a day-long event on Saturday, November the 15th. This is the very first convention of its kind. And obviously it comes at a very, very crucial juncture as the regime has never been any weaker, the prospects for change has never been any brighter. So that's, I would say, a landmark event.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next, which is why this timing? And did it take a lot of time to put this event together?
Yes, indeed, but one has to remember that there's a lot of grassroots support among Iranians for the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And naturally, there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm about this event among Iranians, as I said, who are coming to Washington from all over the United States, south, north, east, west, all the way, because they see the moment in history is coming. The event is comprised of 2 sections. The first section is comprised of 5 panel discussions. One is about the crisis that the regime in Tehran faces from all directions. Another one is the role of women and how, being suppressed, they rose to such a prominent role in the resistance. There's one about the Iranian youth and their role and their expectations and their input to bring about a change in Iran. And there's also one about how to build Iran, basically, after the mullahs are gone. And there's one which I think is very important, is Voices from Iran, and that is hearing from the victims of the regimes, people who had a first-hand personal experiences, and people who actually played a role in recent uprisings in Iran. So they will provide a first-hand, eyewitness account to what they witnessed. So as you can hear, the combination is very unique and very, very, I would say, enlightening. And then there will be 2 exchanges. We do 2 very, very prominent Iranian scholars, and then there would be some remarks by international dignitaries in the afternoon session. So, as I said, it's the first time that Iranians from all over the United States are coming to DC for such a convention of this magnitude, and with a very important message. Their message is that the regime change is very much within reach. It's time that the role of the Iranian people and their organized resistance brought into the calculus, and also, more importantly, that there's a clear roadmap for the transition and what kind of a future democratic republic we envision for Iran. So, as I said, it's going to be an important day, a lot of a very informative day, and input from 3 generations.
Wow, this is unbelievable. I'm going to be there. I can't resist this event, but I'm assuming that what you're hoping is going to come from this event is it's going to fast-track the revolution. It's going to fast-track regime change. Is that the hopes of this event?
Well, actually, naturally, the regime change should come from inside Iran, and that's the role of the Iranian resistance is carrying, and particularly the resistance units affiliated to the People's Mujahideen organization of Iran, the main member organization and constituent of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. But the impact of this event would be to basically echo and reflect what the Iranian people have long been desiring, and to give a different vision about Iran.
But that's a powerful, powerful piece that can be very effective in the change that you're trying to achieve.
Indeed. And as I said,
this is, first, it's going to be unbelievably informative, real catalyst.
Exactly. And as I said, there are going to be more than 1,000 Iranians, and a lot of academicians, a lot of experts, a lot of activists. There has never been anything like this, that all these different Iranians from different strata, from different walks of life, all come together. A lot of them obviously very, very successful, but in the United States, but still very much caring and longing for their own homeland, Iran. I mean, a lot of these people are very successful academicians. They teach at some of the most prominent universities in the United States. They are top-notch researchers. They are very well-established activists. Some of them are very successful entrepreneurs, and some of them are actually young and aspiring. And all they are coming under one roof for one goal and one message. And as you said very correctly, they have an important message to convey, that the mullahs are in their last phase. There's a new Iran coming up, and very much looms on the horizon. And now the policy by the West on both sides of the Atlantic should be reflective of the realities in Iran. So basically, yes, that would be very much talking about a major transformative change which is underway in Iran. And that will be reflected in this unique convention, which, again, as I said, takes place in Washington, D.C. on November the 15th.
And this is going to be a powerful boost to the resistance, no doubt. Are you receiving any backlash? Is there interference? Is the other side trying to hinder this event in any way? Are you getting conflict because of what you're planning? And
well, I think the mullahs have not stopped at any activity over the years to prevent the resistance to have its voice. But I think as their standing inside Iran is ebbing, the same is with their impact outside of Iran. But they are still very, very vicious. They're very, very ferocious. For instance, inside Iran, we have witnessed a major surge in executions in Iran in the last few months, unprecedented in the last 36 years. For example, in the month of September alone, we had 200 executions in 1 month.
Wow.
Yes, which even by the regime's standards was a record, as I said, going back until 1988. And we are talking about the regime which is #1 executioner per capita in the world already. We are talking about the regime that has carried out 64% of the world execution according to Amnesty International in 2024. Yet September was a record on its own. And
so in that way, that's what they're doing, is they're essentially going after anybody in the resistance at this point and executing them. That's what it sounds like. Am I correct?
Well, the victims are not only the resistance activists, but people from different walks of life. Actually, you see, in Iran, in a way, every execution is political because the regime uses this as a method, as a tool to instill fear among the people. But, as I said, in September was 200 executions. In October, there were 285 executions in 1 month. So on average, it was like executing one person every 3 hours. I mean, it's very much hard to fathom. And already in 2025, at least 45 women have been executed. And as I said, among them, obviously, there are political dissidents. Just in July of this year, 2 dissidents who were affiliated to the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as MEK, were hanged in Iran after 3 years of incarceration. One of them was 48, the other one was 70 years old, two men. And now, as we speak at this moment, there are 16 others who are on death row, again charged with affiliation with the MEK and solely for their belief. So you see, the regime inside Iran is going out of its way to prevent fomenting another uprising, which they realize can be the last one and can basically bring the regime to the end. Now, internationally speaking, they have stepped up their terrorism. They have stepped up all sorts of pressure on the Iranian expat community. because they can see that the momentum has shifted and is shifting. Now, talking about the convention in Washington on November the 15th, one has to keep in mind that there has been some major events on their own right in Europe in the past few months. There was a major protest in Brussels on September the 6th that was organized again by the National Consular Resistance of Iran, in which tens of thousands of Iranians took part in Brussels, which is some sort of a capital of Europe. Then we had a major event in London on October the 10th against this wave of executions in Iran. And now this convention is taking place in Washington D.C. on November the 15th. So in a way, inside Iran, we are making huge inroads. Internationally, we are been much more active, which is again reflective of the situation inside Iran.
Now, you also stated that the regime is weakening. Can you give a list of areas that prove that the regime is weakening, whether it's international, whether it's within the country?
Well, inside Iran, I think this whole wave of executions stems from the regime's panicky state. They realize that the grounds are getting prepared for another uprising. And then one has to keep in mind, we have discussed this before in your podcast, that there has been at least 3 major nationwide uprisings in Iran in the past 7 years alone. And each time it has become bigger, more pervasive, stronger. And the regime realizes that another one is at work, particularly given the diligent work that the resistance units of the resistance are doing inside Iran, trying to set the stage. So this wave of executions, which I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, are truly reflective of the fear that the regime faces. Economically speaking, the Iranian currency has reached its historical low. It has lost its value 60% compared to last year. So that means, in a way, the people's purchasing power has reduced 60%. And think for a second, it's like, the prices go up 60% in 1 year. You can imagine what kind of a reaction that will create and what kind of a pressure people, basically go through. On the other hand, we have seen the regime's international standing much weaker. It's been much more isolated than before. Just in late September, the E3, Germany, UK, and France, decided to activate the UN Security Council resolutions that were suspended because of the flawed nuclear agreement back in 2015. They reactivated those sanctions again, so the regime faced a series of serious biting sanctions against the regime and its elite by the UN Security Council, and this is binding and has to be implemented by all the countries in the world. So that was a major setback, and we have witnessed what has happened regionally. There has been setback after setback for the regime and its proxies in the region, and one should not underestimate that, because this has been a pillar of this regime's survival, especially in the past 11 months after the downfall of Assad regime in Syria, which was like the linchpin of the mullah's regional strategy. So if you put all of this together, you can see the regime is facing a confluence of crises from all directions. And despite all these killings and all the crackdown, all the what I describe as demonization campaign over the years against the resistance, it is making a lot of headways. It's now becoming much more recognizable, much more visible, much more acclaimed internationally, particularly the 10-point plan that has been articulated by Madam Mariam Rajavi, the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, has been much more internationally recognized. The impact of the resistance inside and outside of Iran is now much more internationally recognized. So if one puts all of this in perspective, one gets a very good sense that the momentum is very much on the side of the people and the resistance. Obviously, there are challenges ahead. One cannot underestimate them, but the trajectory is very much in favor of the people and the resistance and to the mullah's demise.
And therein comes the conference, which could not be at a more perfect time. So it looks like this conference will be a catalyst for something. There's going to be something after this conference. It's going to be very positive, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think, as you said, you see, if one looks at the Western policy vis-a-vis Iran in the past 4 decades, everything has been tried. Engagement, appeasement, placating, even as we saw in as recent as June, military confrontation. But that none of them has been the solution and none of them is the solution. The biggest missing factor, the biggest missing element in paradigm when it comes to Iran and Iran policy has been the role of the Iranian people and the resistance. And that is the game changer. And basically the enemy within is the mullahs' Achilles heels. And for years and years and for decades and decades, through all sorts of concession seeking, banking on the West's kowtowing, I would say, to the mullahs, by using all sorts of lobbyists and protagonists, the regime tried to sideline the role of the people and the resistance. But now that's over. So in that sense, you are absolutely correct, that this convention in particular, and all these activities in general, are bringing a voice that has been the missing voice, I would say, in the discussions, in the debate about Iran. And so long as this element does not fit its place, the whole Iran situation would be basically clueless, as I said, because the change would not and could not come from outside of Iran. At the same time, the regime's malign activities kept growing and growing and growing, across the board, on human rights situation inside Iran, on terrorism in the region, on driving to acquire nuclear weapons, and whatever one can think of. So in that sense, you're absolutely correct. The convention is very significant because it comes at a time that the people realize there's a big, big Iran challenge, and people are searching for a solution. And also, it's very important that people realize the myth that the mullahs have a staying power is shattered. The regime's vulnerability.
That's important.
The regime's vulnerability has become much more discernible, much more conspicuous. And in that sense, there are two big questions that this convention will address. How the change will come about and what comes after. What is the roadmap? What does the transition will look like? How can be basically guarantees that it will be smooth? And these are the issues that this convention will address.
Well, I have a final question. This is very exciting, a very exciting time for Iran. We may be having a major shift now, and that's what we like to highlight, of course, on this channel. But final question, can anybody attend this event?
Obviously, people can RSVP, especially journalists, and one has to keep in mind that this is a convention of Iranians, but obviously people can attend as observers and they can write to the organizers. There are a lot of details, by the way, about the convention on the website of the NCRI USA office. The website is ncri-us.org. I repeat, ncri-us.org. A lot of details about the panels, the panelists, and all the details needed are there on that website. If people correspond to the NCRI US website, they will be directed in the right direction in terms of how they become more familiar and how can they get more information. But I also urge people to check the social media, because there are a lot of activities about this on Twitter and other social media platforms about this event, and it will be more in the days ahead because, as I said, this is creating a lot of interest among the Iranian community throughout the United States.
Well, thank you so much, Shahin. This is very exciting, and I know right now you're very busy in the organization, but I want to thank you for coming on for today's interview.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you best of times for you and all of your good viewers, and thanks for showing interest on the issue of Iran and this voice about the Iranian resistance, which, as I said, has been the missing element.
Yes, we've been. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a playlist. You're going to find a playlist on this channel with these videos, and also there's going to be a link below to the website. So definitely email or just to lend your support.
I appreciate that, and again, thanks for the opportunity.
You're going to want to be sure to stay tuned to this broadcast so that I will give you an update after the event. I'm attending the event. And also I'll let you know at that time my take on the event, what I discovered, and where you can tune in and what you can expect. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more.